We're going to be continuing with our discussion of the philosophy of the laws of Shabbos. Last time we spoke about a definition of what is Melacha, and I hope that it provided more clarity than confusion. I want to go over it really quickly one more time, and then I'm going to confuse you by giving you another definition. Because, the reason why is not because I want to confuse people, but because different things work for different people, and different people relate to different ideas. So I'd like to give you two different perspectives. I don't think they really contradict each other, but I think they complement each other, and some people might find this perspective to be more helpful than the one we covered on Monday. So on Monday we saw Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who gave his grand theory of Melacha based on the etymology of the word coming from the word malach. And by the way, Chaya, you wanted to know examples of where the Hebrew language lines up so that, two words that sound the same should have very similar meaning, right? Yeah. And I just kind of blanked on the moment, right? But there are plenty of examples. So one good example would be the word chol. What does chol mean? Weekday. Chol can mean weekday, and it can also mean regular sand, right? Now, the reason why chol means chol actually is called the days of the week because it's the opposite of kodesh, right? Hamavdil bein kodesh le chol. Chol means not kodesh. Now, if you understand what the word kodesh means everything is totally connected, right? When you say hari at mikudeshet li, that means you are bound up, and the two of us are connected in the most intimate way that we can possibly imagine. And when a person is kodesh, when they're holy, it means they've taken every single part of their lives and dedicated it to something higher. So kodesh means totally connected. Chol means disconnected, right? Now, if you think about what is a material that is every tiny particle of that material is completely separate from every other tiny particle of that material, it would be sand, right? Sand is something that's completely disconnected from every other particle of sand. So you have many examples of this where the Hebrew language just works out that way, that when two words have the same root, they must share a similar meaning. Okay? Cool? Great. Fantastic. So, last time we spoke about Melacha as coming from the word malach. Who can remember what the relationship is between malach and Melacha? Anyone want to give me in their own words?
You said something about changing. Melacha means to take something with intelligence and change it, with intention and change it.
Incredible. So the definition of Melacha that Rabbi Hirsch arrived at was that a Melacha is to use an intent to transform the physical world with that intention. Now, what does that have to do with a malach?
The messenger.
Right, and what is a messenger? So a messenger is somebody who receives instruction, right? So you give them your intention, and they go carry out that instruction in whatever way that they're meant to. So literally, the world becomes our malach. We have intent. God says, I want you to fix the world. I want you to beautify the world. I want you to elevate it and reveal the potential that's found in this universe. So you, using your divine brains, because we're made B'Tselem Elokim, are going to take your holy intentions and transform the world with that intention to try to reveal the meaning, significance, usefulness of everything in this world. And that's what a Melacha is. That's what Melacha is. Melacha is not exerting a lot of effort. It's not carrying a heavy couch. It's not, running around, although you're not really supposed to run so much on Shabbos, but that's more rabbinic. It's not running around. What it is using your creative, intelligent intentions and transforming some element of the physical world to make it more useful, more productive. So when you're tearing toilet paper, you're saying, well, the whole roll is not useful to me. But tearing off a piece of it, now all of a sudden has use for me. And when I take a even when I take a can of tuna fish and I say, well, I really don't want to eat it when it's all the water and the tuna that's all mixed up together. That's gross. I'm going to squeeze out and separate out the water from the tuna so that the tuna is now usable. Or when you're taking some sort of a the way they get peas, right? Peas have an inedible shell, and I have to take off the shell in order to get to the pea, and now that's making the pea edible because previously it was not. So every time I'm doing a melacha, I am taking some element that is undeveloped in the physical world, and I'm adding my intelligence to it, and I'm turning it into something useful. That's what a melacha is. Yes, Chaya.
So does it specifically have to be something that is permanent?
Well, it has to be permanent to a certain extent. So, for example, when we're talking about tying a knot, it has to be what's called a kesher shel kayemet, which means something that is capable of lasting. Yeah? And in halacha, they talk about how long does it have to last for? Is it a week or this or that, right? And they say, well, maybe we can learn it from sukkah because sukkah has to be capable of lasting for 7 days, so maybe that's a good definition of something that's relatively permanent or relatively lasting. They talk about it. So if you have something like a double knot where you're unable to remove it very easily, then that's called a kesher shel kayemet. But if you have a bow that you tie in your shoelaces and all it needs is just one pull of one string and all of a sudden the whole thing's undone, then it's not a lasting knot. Yes?
So what's the lasting time that they decided on?
That's
Dependent on the melacha?
We could spend a long time going into the details of the halachas of Shabbos, but in order for us to get the most out of this that we can, I love Hilchot Shabbos. I spent a long time studying it, but it's a whole other topic. So ask your local posek. Yes, Ayelet.
If you can't take peas out of the pod thingy on Shabbos, then why can you peel a banana?
That's a really good question, and again, we're not gonna get too deep into halacha. Okay, we're not gonna get too deep into halacha. That question's true for a lot of things. Why can you peel an orange and all kinds of things like that? Yeah. Yes.
Just to understand, so if you're saying things that can just easily be taken out, like a shoelace, you just pull it, then technically speaking, like when it comes to like lip gloss, like on Shabbat,
Yeah.
from my understanding, even if it's clear, it's not allowed because like the gloss of it makes it like.
So there's a couple of issues with gloss. One is that you're spreading. You're not allowed to spread things, right? That's mimareach. Okay, and the other one is it might be an issue of refuah. If you're doing it in order to unchap your lips, there's a rabbinic prohibition on medicine, and that's, yeah.
So like taking with your like prescriptions.
Okay, no. Okay, well, let's clarify so that people don't start telling me, Rabbi, you told people that they have to get off all of their prescriptions on Shabbos, and you've caused a lot of problems. Okay, prescription medicine is fine if something that you have to take every day. If you're feeling so unwell that it's causing a severe headache or you have to lie down, then you're also permitted to take medicine, ibuprofen and things like that. So there are exceptions, but you got to ask a rabbi, okay? You got to find somebody you can sit down with and ask your halachic questions too. Yes, Ruti, is this going to be a halachic question?
Yeah.
Okay, so can we keep it to more philosophy of Shabbos? Because I realize this is going to raise a lot of halachic questions, but this is.
Like a yes or no.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So for spreading, I didn't know that one. Does that apply to like dips and like?
No, when it comes to food, you're allowed to spread food, but that's okay. Again, you got to know what the difference is between spreading food versus spreading cream on your arm and stuff like that. Okay. Also, there's so many interesting halachas that we could talk about here, right? If you have a spray, so for example, like if you have like a thick cream that's that's sun cream, you can't spread that on yourself. But if you have a spray that's like very liquidy and it's meant to be absorbed by your skin, then you can, because the intent is not to spread it. The intent is to actually just work it into your skin. So there's there's a lot to talk about here. Okay, so either find a good halacha sefer or ask a rabbi. Write down all of your halacha questions. Halacha is really important. That's why we're studying the philosophy of halacha. All right, now I want to just keep going a little bit further, okay? Before we get into some more questions. So we said, based on this explanation of Rav Hirsch, the reason why it's so important to refrain from Melacha is because our ability to develop and improve the physical world is really a God-given mandate. Hashem says that I want you to be a partner with me in creation, but I don't want you to forget that I'm a partner, and that really everything that you have and you see is really in service to me. And that's why in the Parshas Yisro it says, Sheishes Yamim Ta'avod, you will work, but really literally it means you will serve. In all of your malacha, everything you're doing, the reason why you're improving your field, and the reason why you're making the toilet paper better, and the reason why you're doing all these things to the physical world is because you want to transform it towards Avodas Hashem. That's what you're trying to do. The problem is, if you're doing that all day long and all week long, you may forget why you're doing it. And so one day a week, you say, look, really all of this is for you. And you're the one who created all of this stuff. And you're the ultimate creative master of nature, not us. We have permission to do it because of you. So for that one day a week, I recognize, oh, now I remember what I was working for. Now I remember what it was all for. Now, I asked you at the end of the class a riddle, which is, why is it has bothered many people throughout history, which is, why, when we welcome in the Malachim on Friday night, why do we then say, thanks very much, see ya? We say, Tzeis l'shalom. They don't always say it in South Africa because they're Litvoks over there, right? You do? Do you say Tzeis l'shalom?
We do.
Okay, fine.
Is it
Okay.
because it's our job now to like make Shabbat holy on our own and like have the spirit of it on our own instead of relying on the Malachim to do it for us?
You're getting there, Tova. You're getting there. We're getting very close. We're asking the Malachim to leave. Now, it's not an accident that in the same way we don't do Malacha, we don't need Malachim. Who wants to put two and two together for me? What? We don't need messengers anymore. The physical world, if the physical world is a messenger, then that means it's an intermediary, right? Every time you have a messenger, it's because, oftentimes, sadly, in divorce cases, if the ex-parents are really not on speaking terms anymore, then one person will give a get through a messenger because they don't even want to be in the same room anymore. So every time you have a messenger, it implies that you want to do this through an intermediary. How am I serving you, Hashem? I'm serving you through the plants that I plant and the things that I cook and the buildings that I build. Look, this is all my avoda to you. But on Shabbos we say, I don't need that middle step. I can just have a relationship with you. It's like the person who loves giving gifts to their spouse, right? Look, I bought you flowers and I wrote you a card and I made you a cake, and it's like, that's great, that's fantastic, but I really just want to spend time with you. So we don't need that intermediary anymore. So when the Malachim come in and they give us, and they come in and they make the bracha and they give us all that energy, and they're like, thank you, that's very nice of you. But as one commentary compared it, it's like the guests at a wedding. You want all the guests at your wedding. You really want a lot of people to come celebrate with you and make your day very, very special. But at the end of the day, you're going home with only one person, because that's what makes the relationship special. And so we're saying to Hashem, it's wonderful, it's amazing, we love these malachim, they've helped us out so much as beings that are capable of bringing in bracha and being able to make all the things in the world happen the way that they're supposed to. But at the end of the day, we just want some time, us and you, Hashem. So that's the understanding on a very deep level. Based on how we understand Melacha, we're basically saying, I don't need all those things in the world to be able to connect to you, Hashem. I just need you. Yes. Leah.
Yeah.
Leah.
So because there's Malachim, they all there's different names, Rafa'al, Michal, they all have different roles.
Yes.
So let's say there's the healer or the staff. So it's not really some of them aren't really messengers. Well, they are messengers from Hashem. So does that mean that
they are the agents?
Hashem...
They are simply it's like Hashem putting a puppet on his finger,
Yeah.
right? And saying, well, this is the healing part of me.
Yeah.
And this is the strength part of me. And it's like, yeah, but it's all you. It's like, yes, it is. But if you were to interact with me all the time, then your circuits would fry because you can't handle the pure blinding light that is God. So I need to be able to clothe myself in ways that makes it possible for you to interact with
So
my
Shabbos-
energy and my power.
So we're
It's a step-down converter. That's what a malach is.
When we tell him to leave, then are we then experiencing?
You got it. Pure, blinding, beautiful light. That's what Shabbos is. Direct sunlight with God. Right? That's part of what makes Shabbos so powerful is we have access to that. All right. Now I would like to present to you a different but complementary philosophy of what Melacha is and why we don't do it on Shabbos. So I've taken an excerpt and made it a little bit shorter, just so that we can read it relatively shorter time, by an incredible rabbi who's known as the Chalban. Anyone know what's a Chalban? What's chalav? Milk. So a Chalban is a milkman. So this man, who only died a couple of years ago, was a incredible makubal.
What's his real name?
I can't remember his real name. He was an incredible makubal who was hidden. He didn't tell anybody who he was. He used to learn all Torah and all of Kabbalah and knew everything, but his job was a milkman. And it was only later in his life when people started realizing who he was, and then people encouraged him to write Svarim of his Torah because it was so beautiful. And he wrote a series of works called the Talalei Chaim, which are some of the most beautiful and accessible Svarim on Kabbalah. They're not deep like jargony Chesed Gevura Tiferes Netzach Hod Yesod. Some of it he does reference sometimes, but a lot of it is very, very down to earth and very readable stuff, and it's really beautiful. So if you can find it, it's not that easy to find, but if you can find it, and if you have a strong interest in Kabbalistic ideas, it's a great introduction.
So women would be allowed to then?
Oh yeah.
No, because like growing up, we were told women can't learn Kabbalah. So,
Well, technically speaking, men can't learn Kabbalah until they're 40 years old.
yeah.
So,
So it's more like
the-
actually going by yourself. And
Nowadays, look, whatever, I'll tell you this. There's like Kabbalah, which, I can count on a few fingers of people who actually learn that, the real Kabbalah, which is just very technical stuff, very jargony, very, very hard to understand. And then there's like Kabbalistic ideas like Hasidus,
Yeah.
Maharal, Pachad Yitzchak, and Rav Dessler, and people who take Kabbalistic concepts and clothe them in accessible ways, and that everybody can learn.
Yeah.
Everybody. So that's all we're learning today. Yeah? All right. So I'm going to give you this excerpt from the Talalei Chaim, and we're going to try to go through it together and see what he says about why it is that we don't do Melacha on Shabbos. Okay? Go. Pass. Can someone please tell me what time it is?
11:20.
11 what?
Yep, 11:40. Yep, 35 minutes.
11:40, and we stop at 12:10. Okay, 30 minutes. Great. Let's see what we can get to. All right. Has everyone gotten one? Okay. Now, as a brief introduction, the prohibition, the halachas of Shabbos, the commandment to keep Shabbos comes up in a few places. The first place is in this week's Parsha, in Parshas Yisro, in the Aseres Adibros.
Doesn't it come up before that?
It came up in Beshalach when it spoke about the mun,
Yeah.
that one should not collect the mun on Shabbos. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
just
true.
Keep Shabbos, rest in your home.
Yeah. Good point. Chaya 1, Rabbi Friedman 0. So it also comes up in Parshas Vayakhel. Vayakhel is towards the end of Sefer Shmos, where Hashem commands the Jewish people to not do Melacha again, and then immediately after commands them on the building of the Mishkan. And it's from there that Chazal learn that the Melachas that we have 39 of are related to all of the work that was done in the Mishkan. Yes.
It also mentions Shabbos when talking about like working the fields, like for like the Shemitah.
Yeah, but Shemitah is much later. Shemitah comes later. Shemitah comes in Parshas Behar, and then later on in Devarim as well.
Right. Why don't the rabbis hint to like working the fields as their nemachos instead of? Like,
Yeah, so that's one of the big questions that I hope we're going to get to in the next couple of weeks, which is why aren't these 39 malachas mentioned in Chumash? The only malacha that they talk about explicitly is fire, making a fire.
Gathering.
Yeah, they don't really speak about cooking explicitly. They're really cooking explicitly.
But isn't that under the Melacha fire?
No, there's a malacha of creating a fire, and then there's a malacha of cooking. It's two different ones. Okay. All right. Talalei Chayim on Shmos. What is the principle that determines what is classified as malacha? To answer this, we must go back to the origins of labor. Now, this is going to be a bit of a shock to some people. At the end of Kiddushin, the Talmud teaches that if Adam had not sinned, there would have been no need for labor at all. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, have you ever seen a wild animal or bird that has an occupation, yet they are sustained? In other words, they can eat without distress. And were they not created to serve me? And I was created to serve my Creator. Should I not all the more so be sustained without distress? In other words, why is it that animals just kind of hang out? They're not accountants. They don't have to go work in a steel mill. So why are their lives relatively, easier than mine? Aren't I higher up on the pecking order than these animals? Rather, I've ruined my deeds and diminished my livelihood. And the Gemara there explains that in the Garden of Eden, and some of you may have heard this concept, that in the Garden of Eden our food was kind of ready-made for us. And there was really no need to develop the world. Now, if you want to think about it this on a more historical sense, so early Homo sapiens didn't spend much time in agriculture or developing and building complex structures, trying to terraform their environment. I live in one of the new neighborhoods of Ramat Beit Shemesh. Outside of my window is just a literal construction site, and it's just, you see bulldozers all the time, all day, coming in, moving ground, putting up concrete. It's that's not what human beings were doing for most of humanity, right? So according to scientific understandings, right, Homo sapiens has been around for 40,000 years. And for most of the lives of human beings, I'm sorry if I'm saying anything that sounds like heresy, but I'm saying for those who are, who want to reconcile this with archaeological and anthropological evidence, human beings in the proverbial Garden of Eden simply meant that we were more animalistic in the sense that we relied on what was there. We gathered and hunted, and we just kind of lived in our environment. At a certain point, human beings started transforming our environment to make it more comfortable for us. So agriculture, in a real way, was only invented about 6,000 years ago, around the time of Adam, right? Or Noah really is the one who invented the plow, they say, and that's when we started having a surplus of food and building up cities and building walls and things like that. So it's a very new concept, this idea of transforming the physical world with our intention. But in the Garden of Eden, everything was there for us. We didn't have to do so much melacha. Labor is a consequence of Adam's sin. It came into the world to rectify creation and to restore it to its original perfected state before the sin. And this would make sense, right? Because if the whole point of Melacha is to transform the world and make it better, then that means that it's not good right now. Yeah? It needs to be fixed, which means that something was broken. Before Adam's sin, the earth naturally produced ready-made loaves and garments, and man had no need to toil in preparing the world for use. But after his transgression, the ground was cursed, yielding only raw materials that required human effort to make them usable. To produce bread, for example, one must perform 11 labors: sowing, plowing, harvesting, gathering, threshing, winnowing, sorting, grinding, sifting, kneading, baking. Who knows what all of those mean? Who knows what winnowing is?
Shaking the
That's right. So winnowing was when they had this very kind of, after they would separate the wheat from the stalks, and then they would kind of hit it to loosen the wheat from the surrounding shell. They'd throw it up in the air, and the wind would carry all the psolis, all the inedible stuff away, and that was called winnowing.
Was that like a miracle or just happened naturally?
No. That was a natural process. That was just the easiest way of them separating out the chaff from the good stuff.
Is that like blowing a dandelion? Same idea?
Yeah, well, blowing a dandelion you can't do anyway because that's called talush. That's separating something. You can't uproot something. Yeah, you're also planting by blowing a dandelion because those are all little seeds.
No, Shabbat, I'm just saying in general.
Oh, yeah, it's more like if you ever buy peanuts and then they come in the shell stuff. So if you were to take that whole box and throw it up in the wind, so the little red shelly stuff would go flying away, and you'd be left with the peanuts that would just fall down. There are like kibbutzim and programs where you can go see the way that every single step of the way that they made bread. It's cool. It's cool to see. It's like. Today we just have bread machines and we just buy the flour, but there's a lot that had to go into that. All right. All these labors serve to rectify the curse of the sin, restoring the world to its prior perfected state. So already we now are starting to understand Melacha in a slightly different way. Melacha is not just like, hey, you want to be creative? Go ahead, like build the world. It's actually coming from a previous story. The story was, once upon a time, everything was already fine. It was great. It was a Garden of Eden. It was perfect. We lived in this state of bliss and perfection. Only once we made a mistake of deciding that we can take matters into our own hands did God say, okay, fine. You want to be God? Go ahead. You're going to have to make everything yourself. That's the Eitz Hadas Tov Hara, right? What did the snake say to Adam? He said, you won't die. God didn't want you to eat from the tree because if you eat from it, you'll... That's not what the snake said.
Oh, that's what it said.
What did the snake say? The snake said, you'll be like God. You'll be God. You don't need God. You can be God. So the Mida Keneged Mida, the measure for measure punishment was like, okay, be my guest. You want to be God? Good luck. And then what was the curse that God gave to Adam?
He has to work the land.
By the sweat of your brow you will eat lechem, bread. So that's the beginning. We see, Adam, you didn't need to make anything before, but now you're going to have to work the ground. You're going to have to engage in agriculture. You're going to have to spend a majority of your days just being able to make a living, a livelihood. Yes.
So
Ruti.
By that explanation, doesn't that insinuate? I know that every rabbi says that that's not the case, but doesn't that say that by the sweat of your brow, and that's a comparison to God, that work is like an exertion, creating is an exertion?
That's not, but it's not called Melacha there. It's literal. It's hard. Meaning, Melacha can be strenuous, but not all Melacha is strenuous.
No,
right?
Not specifically about Melacha, but just for God to create.
Oh, no. So for God to create, it's incredibly easy. For us to create, it's incredibly difficult. That's part of the problem. The part of the problem is that when we decide that we can be like God, we recognize our severe limitations in trying to emulate God. It's way harder for us to create something than it is for God to create something. There's an amazing tour, the Baal HaTurim. The Baal HaTurim on Chumash, He has some really wonderful gematrias and stuff like that. So in last week's parsha, Hashem says, if you listen to everything that I say and you follow my commandments, then all the bad things I did to you, all the bad things I did to Mitzrayim, I won't do to you, because ki ani Hashem rofecha. I am Hashem, your healer, rofecha. Later on in the Chumash, there's a pasuk that we learn that human beings are permitted to heal humans. It's interesting that we need a pasuk to teach me that. But there's a pasuk that says, "V'haropeh yirapeh." The healer will heal. In other words, when somebody's sick, you can, so to speak, play God and try to heal them and try to save their life. The Baal HaTurim points out that the way in which those words are written are slightly different. When it says Hashem, it says Ani Hashem rofecha with a fe, but when it comes to human beings, it says V'haropeh yirapeh with a pei. And the Baal HaTurim says that's coming to teach us that when Hashem heals, it's soft like a fei. But when a human being heals, it is painful and invasive like a puh. I just thought that's so cool. It's like a very interesting way of thinking about it, but it's very true. It's like for us to heal, you need to cut people open to do that. For God to heal, what? Well, you know what? It's interesting. We're getting closer, aren't we? We're getting closer. The minimally invasive surgery, we can now do surgery with lasers. It's actually, we're getting closer and closer. There are a lot of people who say that as we reach closer towards the great, kind of rectification of all of history, and we get closer to Yemos Mashiach, a lot of the klalos, a lot of the curses of Adam and Chava start to fall away. So, look, we now have epidurals. So okay, childbirth is still painful, yeah? But you've taken away a large degree of the pain of childbirth through modern medicine. And hey, we still do have to bake bread by the sweat of our brow, but the use of modern technology makes it far easier to plow, plant, water, harvest. All that stuff is now done with automation. It's pretty incredible if you think about it. Yeah. There's still one hard part, which is raising children. That curse just isn't going away anytime soon. Yes, Shilat.
How do you spell the pain?
Haropeh yirapeh. I wish I could. Oops. Haropeh with a pay. Not with a hey. Yirapeh.
The bottom one is Hashem.
What?
Which one's Hashem? Which one's Melacha?
Oh, the other one is Ani Hashem Rofecha with a fe. Yeah? Hashem
When
Rofecha.
is Hashem saying that?
Well, Ani Hashem Rofecha?
Yeah.
Parshas B'Shalach. Last week's parsha. What?
He's healing who? Who's he healing?
He says that all the illnesses that I gave to Mitzrayim I will not give to you. Ki ani Hashem Rofecha. I'm your healer. Okay, let's keep going. Any questions so far? Melacha is now a tikkun. It's now a rectification. It's not just an expression of our divine creativity. It's now kind of making up for the fact that we tried to play God. And now Hashem says, okay, now that's your job. Right? Now you must use this intermediary in order to be able to connect to me. Adam's sin introduced a mixture of good and evil into the physical world. Thorns and thistles growing alongside wheat, chaff mixed with bran and straw. This is really important. The Nefesh HaChaim says that the word das means to connect. So we all know when it says Adam yada es ishto, man knew his wife, yada, what does it mean? It means sex, right? So Adam and his wife had this very intimate connection. So based on that, the Nefesh HaChaim says, based on Kabbalistic ideas, that the Eitz Hadas Tovara was the tree that combines good and evil. Interesting. And what that means now is that wherever you look around in the world, good and evil are not very clear. It's very difficult to be able to discern what's the right and wrong thing to do. And especially within our own psychology. It's like, oh, I could make that joke about Ayelet and get everyone else in the room to laugh. And it would be really nice because people would like me more. And of course, laughter. Everyone loves laughter, right? It's great. It's going to be fantastic. Okay, so what if Ayelet now is going to secretly be unbelievably embarrassed and feel like she wants to die in the corner? But you know what? Everyone can take a joke, and right? So now all of a sudden morality is very unclear as a result of the admixture, the mixing up of Tov and Ra. And that's part of how we understand the problem with the Eitz Hadas Tov and Ra. So now we live in a world post-Chet where good and evil are all mixed together. And what our job is going to be is to try to pick apart the good from the evil now and try to re-separate them so that we can get more clarity. The essence of labor is to rectify this mixture by extracting the good from the bad, making the world usable and refined. This process is called avodat habirurim. Now the word birur, besides for the fact that it's Dasi's last name, means separation and clarification. Now we know that word from the Melacha of borer, which literally means separating out the bad from the good. Which is why, in a certain sense, he's going to say borer is like the quintessential Melacha. Because what we're doing on this earth is to try to recognize that, like, it's such a morally ambiguous place. And I know, it's really good to make money, but, should I pay my taxes on time? Or maybe I should, try to hide a little bit, because after all, if I take more money home, then I can give more tzedakah, and that's a good thing, right? So maybe it's actually even worth it for me to just hide a little bit of my money from the tax department because, it's the government anyway, and who cares about them, and they were not really going to miss it. So inside of my own brain, I have a really tough time separating out good and evil, and that's part of why life is so difficult. Yes, Chaya.
I thought that's the whole purpose of us. Like you're saying that before Adam's sin, we had such a clear knowledge of what was good and what was bad. But I thought the whole purpose of us was that we have to have that internal struggle to choose between the good and bad, that we don't fully know all the time what's good and bad.
You are raising one of the most incredible questions on the whole story of the Garden of Eden, which is, if we didn't have this mixture of good and bad inside of us, then what were we doing there? What was the struggle? And how did we choose the wrong thing? How did Adam and Chava make a mistake if they didn't have this mixture of good and evil inside their brains? It's a crazy thing to think about. It's an amazing question, but we don't have time to get into it right now. But it's an amazing question. Maybe at lunch we can talk about it if you really want to. What? Rav Zatz, I'm sure, speaks about it, right? So there's beautiful. It's a very important question. Very important. The simple answer is we did have one struggle, which was whether or not to listen to the snake and what that represents, right? In a sense, was it to be? It was really a question of good or more good. Evil as we know it wasn't even a test for them. Wasn't even a test. They would never make fun of Ayelet at the expense of her own dignity just to get a laugh. They would never do it. They would never cheat on their income taxes. All right. The work of refinement. That's really what we're here to do. Can someone please give me the time, just because I just done? 12? Yeah. And we finish at 12:15. Some people say 12:10.
Yeah.
Okay, 12:10. Which separates good from evil, usable from unusable. Adam's sin entangled good with evil. This is the meaning of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where knowledge, das, as I said, implies a fusion. Thus, the essence of Melacha is not about effort, it's not about hard work. Here he's giving a new definition of Melacha. It is, lost my place, it's not about effort, but about refining and elevating raw materials for human use. If an action refines the world, it is Melacha. If not, it is classified as such, even if it requires great exertion. So previously, Rabbi Hirsch gave an explanation, which is you use your brain to have some sort of meaningful effect on the physical world. The Talalei Chaim approaches this from a slightly different perspective. He says, back up. Why did we need labor in the first place? We needed it to fix our mistake. The mistake was that we mixed in good with evil. The process of Melacha is now separating good from evil. Refinement, clarification, taking what's not useful, throwing away the bad stuff and only keeping the good stuff, saying this meat is unusable unless I apply fire to it. Now I'm going to turn it into something purely good, purely useful. Okay, any questions so far? Yes,
I don't know how to phrase this question.
Ariel.
Ariella.
Ariella.
It's the LA, the Kentucky one.
It's okay. Good. Go for it. Yeah.
I don't know how to phrase this question, or even like the question that I'm asking in sense, but it just something about this explanation bothers me.
Okay. So something about this explanation bothers you. Thank you for being honest. This is the beginning of, learning is a process of reading something and then saying something bothers me and then trying to figure out what it is. So is there a particular part that I can help you with, or do you want to think about it and dwell on it until you can until you can speak it out? All right.
I mean, wait.
Yeah.
It's an action that refines the world.
Yeah.
Couldn't you say mitzvot are also part of that?
Yes.
So then are mitzvot melacha?
Some mitzvahs involve refining the physical world. So, taking a candle and turning it into fire.
Right.
Taking a lulav and shaking it. You will find that the majority of those mitzvahs we don't do on Shabbos.
Right, but then what about something like mitzvah hadadayim, which is a very physical thing?
Yeah.
And that's refining the world in a sense.
Yeah, on a spiritual plane. We are not changing the state of the water. We are removing spiritual impurity from ourselves, right? Which we can do on Shabbos. That we can do on Shabbos. So remember, anything having to do with the physical world, we need to refrain from. But you're right. There's still going to be spiritual birurim that we do on Shabbos. So let's keep reading and you'll see. Shabbat, however, is beyond the realm of rectification, is a taste of the world to come, where all work is already complete. As the Torah states, on the seventh day you shall rest as if all your work is done. Rashi, quoting the Gemara, as if all your work is finished. 1 second, Chaya, I see your hand. The sanctity of Shabbat lifts us to the reality before Adam's sin, where everything is already perfected, true. During the 6 weekdays, we must labor to refine and fix the world. These are the things that God commanded to be done. 6 days shall you labor. That's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to work on the world. You have to work on the world. Hashem says, it's a great thing what you're doing. Now that Adam did that Avera, I want you to fix the world. I want you to build things and cook things and change things and color things. But on Shabbat, we enter a different reality. An elevated realm where our souls are illuminated by divine light. So poetic. As a result, we are commanded to detach from labor, including even the holy work of the Mishkan. Because the Mishkan is about building and fixing the world to create a dwelling place for Hashem. But on Shabbos, we say we don't need that. We're already there. We're already dwelling with Hashem. We don't need Melachim. We don't need intermediaries. We don't need nothing. Okay, yes, Chaya?
I thought it says that we're supposed to accomplish all our work, and that was also a question I had. What happens if we don't accomplish our work?
That's
You're
right.
saying it's as if we accomplish
That's
our work?
right. You are in the middle of writing an essay for your class. You're in the middle of working on a deal for your company. You stop at 5 p.m. and you're like, that's it. There's nothing left to do.
But I thought the Torah says 6 days you should work and you should accomplish all your work. And then
Asis Gemlechtecha, yeah. And Rashi says, well, it's impossible to finish all the work. Lo alecha hamalacha ligmor. It's a Mishnah in Perkei Avos. It's not on you to finish all the work. There's no way you can ever possibly be finished in this world. You'll never do everything. But you have to keep trying. Keep trying. Now, how do you feel like you've done everything? Like it's totally done? Wait a minute, I'm in the middle of the essay and it's going to have to start again on Saturday night. I'm in the middle of the business deal. So we can talk about that. That requires deep inner meditation to be able to work on how to have that perspective. But I want to just try to finish this. Shabbat is described as set and established. Kiyama v'kiyama. So it's on its own. It happens on its own. We, unlike the Yamim Tovim, where we had to do something to earn the Yantiv, we had to leave Mitzrayim. We had to build sukkahs, right? We had to receive the Torah. On Shabbos, it happens on its own. That's a gift. It exists beyond time and beyond the realm of human intervention. To work on Shabbat would be to deny that there is a dimension where the world is already rectified. And this is why we start refraining from Melacha. Because we now have to come back to a deeper reality. Yes, it's true that on a certain level, this world needs fixing. But there's a deeper level, which is already perfect, which you can never break. And that's still there. And if you can connect to that, then you know why we're all here and who we really are. To a person who performs labor on Shabbat severs themselves from the sanctity of their soul, mistakenly believing that the world is entirely broken and requires fixing even on the seventh day. Now you start to see how the philosophy of why we don't keep Melacha differs between Rav Hirsch and the Talalei Chaim. Rav Hirsch is saying that the reason why we don't do Melacha is, does anyone remember? Why don't we do Melacha? Because according to Rav Hirsch.
Because we're stopping our work so that we can get closer.
So that we can what?
So we can get closer to Hashem.
We're stopping so we can get close to Hashem. Rav Hirsch says it slightly differently. Yes, but why? What's the function of refraining from Melacha?
That we answer to a higher service.
That's right. So we realize that we're not the ones who are doing everything. Hashem is really in control. He permits us to work, right? But really it's all there for Him. Now he's saying similar, but not exactly the same thing. The Talalei Chaim is saying that to keep working on the seventh day means that you deny the existence of a deeper part of yourself. If I'm entirely bound up as a physical being in the physical world, then yeah, like this world is pretty broken, man. And there's not one part of me that's beyond needing fixing. But if I acknowledge that there is an existence outside of physicality, which cannot in any way be damaged by the physical actions, even the spiritual actions that I do, then it must be that part of my identity is simply being and living with that perfection. And that's what he's saying. You sever yourself from the sanctity of your own soul. There's something inside of you that's perfect. It's great. It doesn't need fixing at all. This is why the Torah says, whoever doesn't work on it shall die. What does it mean? You spiritually disconnect from the elevated holiness of the day, falling into the impurity of the material world, and instead of uplifting creation, you sink into its corruption. You say, I'm in the world, I'm part of the world, I have to work to fix the world, my whole life is the world, the world, the world. This is like the sin of the golden calf, separating the higher reality from the lower. Okay, he talks about that elsewhere. By refraining from labor on Shabbat, we affirm that beneath the external brokenness of the world, the hidden, untouched holiness remains intact. The essence of our soul, the essence of creation, the essence of ultimate redemption. So now what this is saying is like something totally... Now, this is the part where you have to turn this into your own experience on Shabbos. What does this mean for me? Very good. Intellectually, I understand what Melacha is. I know how it works. I know how all the pieces fit together. And great, very good, Rabbi. Melacha is separating and refining and clarifying the world. And if I don't do that on Shabbos, right, then I'm somehow connecting to a state of myself that's good and pure and holy. Wow, beautiful. But what does that feel like? What does that actually feel like on Shabbos? So this is the part where it becomes fun. Because now you get to try on Rabbi Hirsch and the Chalban and actually ask yourself, what am I experiencing if I just stop? What does it feel like? What am I doing to myself? Do I feel like I'm handing the keys back to Hashem and recognizing that I don't need to do all this work because Hashem's in control and really I can just be with Him? Or is it saying, I don't need to do all this work on myself because the physical world is a representation of me, and if I just stop, I can recognize I don't have to beat up on myself all the time, and I don't have to accomplish and have goals, and my whole self-esteem is built on, did I do what I need to do? Did I make this much money, and do I have this many friends, followers on Instagram, and do I have, I passed this test, and I got this job, and if my whole self-worth is attached to that, then I will never be done. And I will never be good enough for myself. And one day of the week, I'm allowed to tell myself, yes, it's true. Life is about working, and that's why I'm partially here. But if I don't remember that there's some piece of me that doesn't need any justification, I don't need to prove anything to anybody, then that's what gives me sanity for the other 6 days of the week. It's that I know that my deepest sense of self is tied to something that's already good and perfect. And now I can step into Sunday saying, great, I'm great, and I love myself. But of course I know that it's worthwhile to work in the world, to try to be creative, to try to be godly, to try to fix something, to try to do something with the world and with myself. And both can be true at the same time. This is part 2 of Beyond Melacha.